The movie starts with this high school guy named Yoon Se-yoon. He's super smart and always shows up to school early. One day, his teacher, Mrs. Yoon, tells everyone that Se-yoon and his classmate, John Young-bin, won a math competition. They get called up to the front to get their awards. Se-yoon gets first place and Young-bin gets second place. Mrs. Yoon tells them to study hard because exams are coming up. Later, during a break, Young-bin and his friends start picking on another guy in the class. But then Young-bin notices Se-yoon, who's busy studying and not paying attention to them. Meanwhile, there's this guy named Young-bin. He's not too happy that Se-yoon is super smart, so he tries to make Se-yoon mad by throwing a sandal at him. But Se-yoon stays cool and just tells Young-bin to be careful. Well, that really ticks off Young-bin, and he threatens to do something worse. Just then, some students from the school's baseball team storm into the class looking for a guy named Suho. See, Suho had hit a girl named Na-moon the day before. Suho's in the class, and he explains that he only hit Na-moon because she wouldn't leave him alone after he turned down her love confession. But Na-moon's friends from the baseball team want to teach Suho a lesson and start attacking him with baseball bats. Now, Suho used to be a pro fighter, so he takes them all down, even though it's just him against the whole team. Some people, including Young-bin, know about Suho's fighting skills and decide not to mess with him. After beating the baseball team, Suho accidentally drops Se-yoon's pencil case. But Suho, who's known for being tough, suddenly becomes really polite and apologizes to Se-yoon for dropping his stuff. So, the next morning, Se-yoon gets to school and sees Suho snoozing in the classroom. He notices that Suho often sleeps there because he works part-time and doesn't go home to rest. During break, Se-yoon goes up to Young-bin and tells him to stop bullying. But Young-bin doesn't listen and tells a friend to bother Se-yoon. He even threatens to hit him. But suddenly, a teacher walks in and scolds Young-bin for bullying Se-yoon. Young-bin says they were just playing, and since Se-yoon agrees, the teacher leaves them alone. A few days later, a new kid named Beom-seok, who wears glasses, transfers to their school because he got bullied at his old one. Young-bin and his gang approach Beom-seok and ask about his old school. While they do that, Se-yoon comes back from the restroom and asks Young-bin to go back to his seat. Young-bin ignores him, and there's some tension between them. Se-yoon stands his ground even though Young-bin and his friends try to intimidate him. Eventually, they leave Se-yoon alone after Suho wakes up and gives them a stern look. Later that night, Young-bin and his friends are at a nightclub when Young-bin's cousin, John Sok-dae, shows up to deliver something they ordered. Young-bin orders this strong painkiller called fentanyl, which is way more powerful than morphine. It's usually used for severe pain or after surgery. Young-bin asks his cousin if you can put fentanyl on your skin. His cousin, Sok-dae, tells him it can make you drowsy, mess up your vision, and even make you sick, like throwing up. Young-bin gets worried that his cousin might suspect something, so he says he was just curious, and Sok-dae leaves. The next day, Young-bin talks secretly to Beom-seok and says he knows why Beom-seok switched schools. Beom-seok begs him to keep it a secret because he doesn't want people to know he got bullied. Young-bin promises to keep Beom-seok's secret if Beom-seok helps him. Young-bin gives Beom-seok a fentanyl patch and tells him to put it on Se-yoon. On the day of an exam, Beom-seok, sitting behind Se-yoon, pretends to pat Se-yoon's neck and says he's shooing away a fly. But secretly, he puts the fentanyl patch on Se-yoon's neck. Not long after, Se-yoon starts feeling really sleepy, his vision gets blurry, and he feels sick and sweaty. He tries to go to the bathroom to avoid vomiting in class. Se-yoon starts feeling better and goes back to his class. He finds the fentanyl patch on his neck and realizes Beom-seok put it there when he tapped him on the neck. The drug's still making him really tired, so he slaps himself to stay awake during the exam. Everyone's surprised to see him slapping himself, but he tells them he's okay. While checking his exam, Se-yoon sees that he got some answers wrong because of the drug Beom-seok put on him. He's usually super focused on getting a perfect score, so he gets really mad. Se-yoon gets so angry that he bangs his desk, goes over to Young-bin, and starts hitting him with a book. He even stabs another guy with a pen who was helping Young-bin. But it doesn't stop there. He keeps beating Youngbin until he breaks his nose, and nobody tries to stop him. Then Suho comes into the class and tries to stop Si-eun, saying he's gone too far. But Si-eun, still furious, doesn't listen and is ready to fight anyone, even Suho. Si-eun grabs a chair to attack Suho, but Suho avoids it and fights back. Finally, Mrs. Yoon shows up and separates them. Later that evening, Mrs. Yoon takes Si-eun to the hospital to see Youngbin, who got admitted after Si-eun beat him up and broke his nose. When they get there, Youngbin's mom, Mrs. Chun, starts scolding Si-eun and wants to report him to the police for hurting her son. But when Si-eun shows Mrs. Chun the fentanyl patch that Youngbin used to prank him, she goes silent. Youngbin tries to dodge the evidence, but Si-eun empties Youngbin's bag in front of his mom and Mrs. Yoon. They're shocked to see the fentanyl patch, and Mrs. Chun changes her mind about calling the police. She just tells Si-eun to go home. Back home, Si-eun's dad, Song-kyun, finds out that Si-eun got into a fight at school. Song-kyun figures it's normal to have fights sometimes and believes his son was just defending himself. But Si-eun acts cold toward his dad. That's because Si-eun distanced himself from his dad after he divorced Si-eun's mom. The next day, Youngbin's friends, Chong-chun and Tae-hoon, want to get back at Si-eun for beating them up before. They challenge him to a fight, and Si-eun agrees, inviting them to the bathroom. Once inside, Si-eun locks the door and gets ready to defend himself with a pen. Chong-chun and Tae-hoon get scared and change their minds about taking revenge. At the hospital, Youngbin wants to get back at Si-eun and asks Seok-dae for help. At first, Seok-dae doesn't want to because he doesn't want trouble. But when Youngbin offers him a lot of money, Seok-dae agrees to help his cousin. At night, Si-eun is on the bus and unexpectedly meets Suho, who's working part-time as a courier. Si-eun apologizes for their fight a while back, and Suho says he'll forgive Si-eun if he buys him lunch. The next day, Si-eun keeps his promise and treats Suho to lunch at the school cafeteria. They start getting along, and it's the first time Si-eun looks close to a schoolmate. On the way home, Si-eun runs into Youngbin, who's with Seok-dae and his group. Si-eun tries to ignore them and walk past, but Seok-dae stops him and slaps him. Other students see what's happening but don't dare to help because Seok-dae is a tough guy in the area. Beom-seok, who sees Si-eun being taken away by Seok-dae and his group, rushes to tell Suho and asks him to rescue Si-eun. At first, Suho doesn't care much about Si-eun because they're not close. Beom-seok gets annoyed and scolds Suho for being ignorant. Finally, Beom-seok convinces Suho to help by offering him double his part-time job salary. Suho gets excited and agrees to save Si-eun. Meanwhile, Youngbin and Seok-dae take Si-eun to a remote place and get ready to attack him together. Even though Si-eun is alone, he's not scared and fights back against Seok-dae and his group. Surprisingly, Si-eun holds his own and even paralyzes them. Si-eun thinks he's won and picks up his bag to leave. But suddenly, Seok-dae gets up and attacks Si-eun, and Youngbin knocks him down. Then Youngbin tells Tae-hoon to hold Si-eun while he tries to hurt Si-eun's hand. Soon after, Suho shows up and helps Si-eun. Being a former MMA fighter, Suho easily takes on Seok-dae's guys. But just as Suho is about to leave with Si-eun, Seok-dae surprises everyone by attacking Suho, and they start a tough fight. Meanwhile, Youngbin tells his gang to attack Si-eun, who's already hurt. Even though Seok-dae is a tough opponent, Suho eventually beats him. At the same time, Youngbin grabs a glass bottle to hurt Si-eun. Luckily, Beom-seok appears out of nowhere and stops Youngbin. Embarrassed by their defeat at the hands of high school students, Seok-dae and his gang decide to leave, ignoring Youngbin's orders to attack Si-eun and his friends. Once Seok-dae and his group were gone, Si-eun tells Youngbin to stop bothering him. Later, Suho invites Si-eun and Beom-seok to have lunch at the restaurant where he works part-time. While they eat, Beom-seok confesses that he was the one who put the fentanyl patch on Si-eun's neck under Youngbin's orders. Beom-seok says sorry for getting Si-eun in trouble, and Si-eun forgives him. Si-eun understood that Beom-seok had to follow Young-bin's orders to avoid getting bullied. After this incident, the three boys become closer, and Si-eun starts opening up more because he has friends who support him. Later that night, Seok-dae and his gang are summoned by their boss, Gil-soo, because he heard they took on a job from someone else. This was against the rules, so Gil-soo punishes Seok-dae by beating him badly. He even tries to break Seok-dae's arm. Young-bin, who meets Seok-dae at the hospital, is surprised to see his cousin's injured arm. Young-bin asks what happened, but Seok-dae stays silent. Gil-soo, who's also there, tells Young-bin that Seok-dae got punished for taking a job from Young-bin himself. Gil-soo then tells Young-bin that he should replace Seok-dae and work to make money for him. Meanwhile, Si-eun is at a convenience store and catches Yang-yi stealing. Strangely, he decides not to report it to the store employees. On his way home, Si-eun meets Yang-yi, who's stuck outside without an umbrella. When Si-eun opens his umbrella and walks home, Yang-yi follows him and invites him to dinner to thank him for not reporting her. During dinner, Yang-yi tells Si-eun she likes quiet guys like him and asks for his phone number, but Si-eun doesn't seem too interested in what she's saying. Somewhere else, Gil-soo is threatening a man because he's late in paying back his debt. Gil-soo even threatens to harm the man's family if he doesn't pay within 3 days. The next day at school, Young-bin asks Si-eun to testify that the fentanyl wasn't Young-bin's. Even though Young-bin did something wrong by using illegal drugs, Si-eun agrees to help him. Young-bin then invites Si-eun and his friends to meet a lawyer, but things take a suspicious turn when they end up in an underground parking lot instead of the lawyer's office. Surprisingly, Young-bin has brought them to Gil-soo and his men. Gil-soo blackmails them, demanding $15,000 for Seok-dae's injured arm. Suho realizes it's a scam because he didn't hurt Seok-dae that badly in their fight, but Gil-soo threatens Suho with a knife, so Suho doesn't fight back. Gil-soo orders Si-eun and his friends to pay the money within 3 days, warning that he'll kill them if they don't. For the next 3 days, Gil-soo and his men watch Si-eun and his friends closely, even guarding their school and home to make sure they don't go to the police or try to escape. Si-eun figures out that Yang-yi is one of Gil-soo's people. He secretly meets her and learns that Gil-soo is a dangerous guy who doesn't hesitate to kill for money. Yang-yi says Gil-soo has connections with gangsters and advises Si-eun and his friends to do what Gil-soo wants if they want to stay alive. She suggests giving Gil-soo the money, even if it's only half, but Si-eun refuses, saying they haven't done anything wrong. Then Yang-yi shows him an online gambling site run by Gil-soo, explaining how they trick people into gambling and owe Gil-soo money. She reveals that she and Seok-dae also owe Gil-soo and are trapped in this situation. They can't afford to run away. Upon hearing all this, Si-eun decides to report Gil-soo to the police. The next day, Beom-seok surprises his friends by showing them $15,000 in cash. Si-eun and Suho ask where he got the money, and Beom-seok says he sold his father's watch, though he actually stole it. Si-eun urges Beom-seok to return the money and get the watch back. He also informs them that Gil-soo runs an illegal online gambling site, and that he plans to frame him and get him arrested. Suho has a plan too, to gather evidence against Gil-soo by visiting his house, while Si-eun finds out Gil-soo's home address. On their way home from school, Suho approaches Gil-soo and suggests ideas to make more money with the online gambling site. Suho confidently says these changes will bring in bigger profits because he's influential at Beoksan High School. Gil-soo gets interested and invites Suho to his house for a detailed discussion. Meanwhile, Yang-yi promises Gil-soo to keep an eye on Si-eun and Beom-seok so they don't escape. After Gil-soo and his gang leave, Yang-yi tells Si-eun about Gil-soo's home address. Worried for Suho's safety, Beom-seok hurries to call a taxi to catch up with them. Si-eun tries to stop him because facing Gil-soo and his gang alone is dangerous, but Beom-seok doesn't care and would rather give his money to the thugs than risk his friend's safety. Seok-dae notices that Si-eun and his friends care for each other and asks Yang-yi about their plan to frame Gil-soo and put him in jail. Yang Yi tells him about their plan, and Sakdae appears to be thinking of another plan. Shortly after, Suho finally reaches Gil-soo's place, but is asked to hand over his phone because Gil-soo knows he lied. Gil-soo checks Suho's phone and sees a message from Si-eun saying they're heading to Gil-soo's place with the police. Gil-soo grabs a baseball bat and beats Suho unconscious. Beom-seok arrives and offers $15,000 to free Suho, but Gil-soo orders his men to arrest Beom-seok instead. Si-eun arrives with 2 cops, but they can't enter without a search warrant. Since Gil-soo doesn't answer the door, the cops leave and tell Si-eun to gather evidence first. Si-eun sneaks into Gil-soo's house through a broken window and finds bloodstains, realizing his friends are in danger. Meanwhile, Gil-soo receives a call from Sakdae, who has betrayed him. Gil-soo plans to meet Sakdae and punish him for his betrayal. Sakdae rushes to meet Gil-soo to resolve their issue. Yang Yi insists on joining and calls Si-eun to inform him of their location, asking him to bring the police to help save his friends. Gil-soo takes Suho and Beom-seok to an abandoned amusement park. Sakdae and Yang Yi arrive, and Sakdae challenges Gil-soo to a fight. They fight fiercely, but Gil-soo cheats by using an iron bar. Yang Yi tries to stop him, but he ignores her and turns to Suho, intending to kill him. Surprisingly, Sakdae gets up to stop Gil-soo from killing Suho. Gil-soo cheats again, this time with a knife, but Yang Yi hits him on the head with a wooden block. Gil-soo tries to strangle Yang Yi, but they hear a police car siren in the distance. Si-eun, who had sneaked in, frees his friends. Gil-soo and his men return, realizing they were tricked by Si-eun using a fake police car siren on his phone. A fierce battle between them breaks out. Meanwhile, Yang Yi and Sakdae see 2 policemen approaching. Beom-seok, too scared to fight thugs like Gil-soo, watches from the sidelines. The police arrive and point their guns to break up the fight. Gil-soo tries to run, but Si-eun catches up, leading to another fistfight. Si-eun faces Gil-soo, a tough thug, and struggles. Suho finally arrives and helps Si-eun defeat Gil-soo. Sakdae tells Yang Yi to escape, while he deals with Gil-soo, even though they may face the police. Si-eun and Suho manage to defeat Gil-soo and hand him over to the arriving police. They're taken to the police station to provide testimony. Beom-seok's father's aide, Dong-min, approaches them and asks Si-eun to return home while he handles the situation. Dong-min later invites Beom-seok to confront Gil-soo, but Beom-seok is too scared and leaves. Si-eun tells Yang Yi that Sakdae may soon be released after police interrogation. They visit Suho at the hospital, where Yang Yi apologizes for her role in the situation. To make amends, Yang Yi stays with Suho, and Si-eun decides to spend the night there, surprising everyone with his caring attitude. Meanwhile, Beom-seok's father, Ji-won, feels humiliated by his son's involvement with thugs like Gil-soo. Ji-won, a counselor, punishes Beom-seok by physically beating him with a golf club. A few days later, Si-eun, Suho, and Beom-seok have lunch together in the school cafeteria, discussing their recent experiences. Suho brings up Yang Yi, which surprises Beom-seok as he doesn't know her. Suho explains that Yang Yi is the girl who bravely hit Gil-soo with a wooden block. Beom-seok feels inferior because he didn't show the same courage. Beom-seok later notices Suho's social media post showing their closeness with Si-eun and Yang Yi during their hospital visit. He feels jealous, thinking they don't consider him a friend. The next day, Suho and Beom-seok meet Yang Yi at a cafe, and they seem close. Beom-seok becomes even more jealous when Si-eun joins them without reprimanding him. They decide to go to karaoke, and Beom-seok buys drinks for his friends. However, he runs into his former schoolmates, who used to bully him, and hides from them. When Beom-seok rejoins his friends, he's upset that Yang Yi answered a call on his phone from his former schoolmates. This leads to an argument, and Yang Yi decides to leave. Suho tries to persuade her to stay. Later, one of Beom-seok's former schoolmates, Ju-won, arrives with friends and greets Beom-seok, claiming to be his best friend from his old school. Beom-seok doesn't like their presence, and Si-eun asks them to leave. After Ju-won and his friends left, Si-eun asks Beom-seok about them, but Beom-seok doesn't want to talk much about them, saying they're not important. The next day, Beom-seok tries to focus on studying in class, scolding noisy students. However, they mock him, thinking he's become arrogant because of his friendship with Suho and Si-eun, known for their fighting skills. Beom-seok suddenly leaves the class, surprising Suho. Suho asks Si-eun about Beom-seok, but Si-eun doesn't say much. A few days later, Ju-won keeps calling Beom-seok, so he turns off his phone. Si-eun and Suho worry about Beom-seok and decide to visit his house since he hasn't been to school. They are amazed to find out that Beom-seok lives in a big luxurious house and that his father is a famous government official. Beom-seok revealed that he was adopted by Ji-won a few years ago to improve his public image as a counselor. Ji-won treats him unfairly because Beom-seok is not his biological son. Si-eun asks Beom-seok about the incident at the karaoke place, and Beom-seok explains that Ju-won and his group are former schoolmates who used to bully him. They often hurt him physically. Suho asks if Beom-seok did something to provoke them. Beom-seok tells them that Ju-won's group are troublemakers who enjoy bullying others. Suho gets angry and wants to make them apologize to Beom-seok. The next day, Beom-seok meets Ju-won's group and asks for an apology. When they refuse, Suho steps in, and after some threats, they reluctantly apologize. Beom-seok slaps Ju-won, and in return, Ju-won slaps him back, causing his glasses to fall off. Beom-seok tries to attack Ju-won with a microphone, but Suho stops him and takes him away. Si-eun warns Ju-won's group not to bother Beom-seok anymore. Outside, Beom-seok argues with Suho about revenge, and they part ways. Meanwhile, Ju-won's group plans to get back at Beom-seok. Tae-hoon and his group were nearby and saw Ju-won and his friends about to bully Beom-seok. They stepped in to help Beom-seok and took Ju-won's group to a quieter place, where Beom-seok got his revenge by fighting back. Beom-seok thanked Tae-hoon and treated them to drinks at a bar, posting a photo together on social media. They became social media friends, and Beom-seok felt closer to Tae-hoon than Si-eun and Suho, who didn't even follow him online. The next day, Si-eun noticed Beom-seok talking to Tae-hoon in class and learned that Beom-seok had been drinking and smoking with them. During the break, Si-eun asked Beom-seok about his friendship with Tae-hoon, but Beom-seok said he could be friends with anyone. Beom-seok also mentioned feeling that Suho never considered him a friend, which Suho overheard, but Beom-seok walked away without acknowledging it. At night, Beom-seok went to a nightclub with Tae-hoon and his friends. Meanwhile, Young-bin, who had changed schools, introduced Beom-seok to his new classmate, Woo-young. Si-eun talked to Suho about Beom-seok, worried that Tae-hoon's group might be using him because of his wealthy background. However, Suho didn't seem to care about Beom-seok anymore, feeling used himself. The next day, Si-eun talked to Tae-hoon and Chong-chund, asking them to stop using Beom-seok. Chong-chund argued that Beom-seok willingly gave them money and treated them to drinks. Suho, overhearing the conversation, thought Beom-seok had changed, so Si-eun didn't need to worry. While waiting in line at the cafeteria, Tae-hoon and his friends cut in line. Suho scolded them and told them to wait like everyone else, even pushing Chong-chund when he refused to follow the rules. Suho, annoyed with Beom-seok, pushed him to the ground after a cafeteria argument. Beom-seok and his friends left and discussed finding someone to beat Suho. They decided to approach Woo-young, a former MMA fighter, and offered him money to defeat Suho. Woo-young accepted the offer, and they planned to trap Suho during his birthday celebration. That night, Tae-hoon and Chong-chund tampered with Suho's motorcycle brakes to ensure Woo-young's victory. Suho had an accident due to the tampering and injured his leg. He suspected Tae-hoon and his friends were responsible. The next day, Suho continues attending school despite his serious injury and gives Beom-seok a cold look. Beom-seok tries to inquire about Suho's condition, but Suho brushes him off. Later, Si-eun and Young-yi plan a surprise for Suho's birthday. Young-yi receives a message from Beom-seok and leaves to meet him at a cafe, apologizing for the previous conflict. Beom-seok acts condescendingly towards her. While Suho and Si-eun wait for Yang-yi at the birthday celebration, Si-eun becomes worried when she doesn't return. Si-eun checks Suho's phone and discovers that Beom-seok has kidnapped Yang-yi and demanded that Suho come alone to save her. Si-eun decides to handle the situation herself to protect Suho from further harm. She arrives at the designated location with a wrench as a weapon. Beom-seok and his group are surprised to see her and chase her and Yang-yi as they try to escape the building. Si-eun fights Young-bin and his group to protect Yang-yi, who tries to call the police. Si-eun manages to defeat Young-bin's group, but when Woo-young, a former fighter, arrives, he overpowers Si-eun. Young-bin's group then joins in, beating Si-eun with iron rods. Yang-yi arrives with 2 policemen, causing Young-bin's group to flee. The police call for an ambulance and question Si-eun. Instead of telling the truth, Si-eun says he fell down the stairs, which frustrates Yang-yi. Si-eun asks Yang-yi to keep it a secret from Suho, fearing Suho might seek revenge. Yang-yi agrees to keep it from Suho. Suho wakes up and realizes his friends haven't returned home. He tries to call them but gets no answer. Si-eun undergoes intensive care at the hospital, where his father, Song-kyun, questions his injuries. Si-eun lies about tripping and falling down the stairs. Song-kyun doesn't believe Si-eun's explanation and decides to transfer him to another school to protect him from bullying. The next day, Suho notices both Si-eun and Beom-seok are absent from school. He texts Si-eun, who's in the hospital, but initially plans to ignore it. However, he eventually replies, saying they're attending a family event. Worried, Suho visits Si-eun's house, but gets no response, assuming they're at the event. The following day, Suho meets Yang-yi at a diner and asks why she and Si-eun left before celebrating his birthday. Yang-yi wants to tell him the truth but had promised Si-eun not to, so she walks away after snapping at Suho. Suho then asks Chong-chund and Tae-hoon about Beom-seok's whereabouts, and they're surprised he knows they cut his motorcycle's brake cable. Chong-chund tries to call Beom-seok on the school rooftop, but gets no answer. They discuss how Young-bin went too far when beating up Si-eun, who had to be hospitalized. Suho overhears and gets angry, confronting them. Chong-chund reveals that Beom-seok planned to frame Suho and paid Woo-young to fight him. He also ordered them to cut Suho's motorcycle brake cable. Suho goes to Yang-yi's workplace and asks for Si-eun's hospital address, making her realize he knows the truth. She reveals Si-eun is back home. Suho visits Si-eun, who's still recovering, and asks about returning to school, planning to seek revenge for what happened to his friend. Meanwhile, Beom-seok's adoptive father visits him, upset about his recent troubles, and decides to send him abroad to study. At night, Suho confronts Young-bin to find Beom-seok's location, but gets no answers. Beom-seok calls Suho, arranging a meeting and promising a reward for beating him. Yang-yi, worried about Suho's retaliation, contacts Si-eun, who rushes to find Suho. Suho arrives at the meeting place and confronts Beom-seok, demanding apologies for Yang-yi and Si-eun. When Beom-seok refuses, Suho fights him and his group. Then Suho agrees to face Woo-young in the ring. Suho, with his M&A skills, easily defeats Beom-seok's group before stepping into the ring with Woo-young. Before their fight, Suho warns Woo-young about the previous bout, but Woo-young is confident he can win this time. They engage in a fierce battle, but Tae-hoon interferes by tripping Suho. Woo-young seizes the opportunity to kick Suho in the head, leaving him defenseless. Beom-seok joins in, beating Suho severely, while Chong-chund records the attack. Beom-seok then instructs his group to gang up on Suho for revenge. Dong-min, an aide to Ji-won, intervenes and stops the violence. Chong-chund and Tae-hoon fear Suho may be dead and consider fleeing, but Dong-min advises them to follow his instructions. Beom-seok, realizing the consequences, cries in frustration. Dong-min takes him away to manage the situation. Yang-yi and Si-eun, unable to reach anyone for Suho's whereabouts, grow increasingly worried. Dong-min instructs Tae-hoon, Chong-chund, and Woo-young on what to do to avoid blame for their actions against Suho. After the ambulance took Suho to the hospital, Dongmin instructed the 3 students to lie to the police, claiming that Suho had collapsed during their sparring session. This way, they hoped to avoid blame if Suho remained in a coma or worse. Meanwhile, Beom-seok faced severe punishment from his adoptive father for causing trouble and putting someone in a coma. His father, Ji-won, decided to send Beom-seok abroad for study and asked him to prepare while he dealt with the school transfer paperwork. The next day, Si-yoon received a shocking call from Yang-yi, informing him that Suho was in a coma after a beating by Beom-seok and his group. Si-yoon rushed to the hospital and was deeply moved to tears when he saw his comatose best friend. Later, Si-yoon took a bus to Jisung High School to confront Young-bin. Si-yoon found Young-bin in his class and didn't hesitate to confront him in front of classmates. Si-yoon inquired about Woo-young's whereabouts, and Young-bin clarified that Woo-young was not present during Suho's beating due to his injured finger. Young-bin also revealed that Beom-seok was the mastermind behind the incident, hoping for Si-yoon's forgiveness and to avoid further confrontation. However, an angry Si-yoon ignored Young-bin's defense and stabbed him in the shoulder with a pen. Meanwhile, Yang-yi rushed to Beom-seok's house and blocked the car meant to take him to school. She confronted Beom-seok and questioned his actions. Beom-seok got out of the car and confessed that he was doing all this because he was jealous of Yang-yi getting closer to Suho and Si-yoon, to the extent that they were ignoring him. After explaining his jealousy, Beom-seok drove away, leaving Yang-yi unaware of her unintentional role in pushing Beom-seok to such extremes, even causing Suho to go into a coma. Si-yoon eventually arrived at the school gym and immediately attacked Woo-young with a baseball bat. Despite the surprise attack, Woo-young managed to dodge and counter Si-yoon's strikes, knocking him down. He taunted Si-yoon, believing he could never beat him. Si-yoon then recalled self-defense techniques Suho had taught him and used them to block Woo-young's attacks. Surprisingly, Si-yoon withstood Woo-young's assaults and counterattacked, using his shoelaces to strangle Woo-young. He also used a barbell to knock Woo-young down and beat him up. Realizing he couldn't win, Woo-young begged for Si-yoon's forgiveness, revealing that he had only fought Suho in a professional setting, while Beom-seok was responsible for putting Suho into a coma. Si-yoon didn't care about Woo-young's defense and struck him with the barbell once more before leaving. He then returned to his school, determined to get revenge on his classmates who were involved in the beating that left Suho in a coma. Si-yoon grabbed a fire extinguisher upon arrival, planning to confront Tae-hoon and Chong-chun. Tae-hoon dodged the attack, but Chong-chun managed to knock Si-yoon down and take the fire extinguisher. However, Si-yoon quickly regained control, knocking them out with it. After defeating them, Si-yoon confronted Beom-seok, who seemed confident that Si-yoon wouldn't harm him. Si-yoon approached Beom-seok, who urged him to strike. An angry Si-yoon hesitated, but eventually spared Beom-seok, who didn't know why he had done all this to Suho and Si-yoon. Si-yoon still considered Beom-seok a friend, despite him causing Suho's coma. Si-yoon forgave Beom-seok and left the classroom. Si-yoon walked through the school corridor, where students and teachers tried to stop him. Filled with anger and disappointment, Si-yoon broke a window and yelled at them to leave him alone. He then left the school, crying in frustration, and returned to the hospital to be with Suho. While looking after Suho, Si-yoon fell asleep and dreamt that Suho had awakened, and they apologized to each other for everything. Upon waking up, he realized it was just a dream and cried again, seeing his best friend still comatose before him. Sometime later, after sending Beom-seok away to study abroad, Ji-won considered sending Si-yoon to juvenile prison for assaulting Woo-young and his schoolmates. But Ji-won changed his mind when Si-yoon threatened to reveal the video of Beom-seok's attack on Suho, who was now in a coma. Si-yoon got expelled from Beoksan High School and ended up at Injung High School, known for its delinquent students. Si-yoon didn't seem bothered by this, as he wouldn't let anyone bring him down. His new homeroom teacher took him to class and asked Si-yoon to introduce himself. In the classroom, a student named Yeoman insulted Si-eun's name, saying it sounded like a girl's name. Si-eun responded with a fierce stare, and Yeoman got annoyed and knocked Si-eun stationary. Yeoman declared that Si-eun would be his slave and had to obey his orders. Si-eun grabbed a pen and looked ready to defend himself. The scene ends by introducing another male student from Anjung High School who might be Si-eun's next opponent in the upcoming season. So the moral of the story is never mess with someone named Si-eun. He might seem quiet, but he's secretly a ninja in disguise. So don't judge a ninja by their school uniform.